wanted to talk to you guys about something really important. It's your central nervous system. So if you think about your central nervous system as your brain, which basically sits inside the cranium here, and your spinal cord, which basically runs through this hole right here called the foramen magnum, all the way down through your spine, over 24 pairs of nerves that go to each different part of your body, not only controlling how you feel, but also how you heal and how you function. So really, when we look at the brain, if you look at the base of the skull here, you can see there's different holes which are called foramen. And out of those, each one of those holes come different blood, essentially blood vessels and cranial nerves. If you look at the base of the skull through here, again, you can see those different foramen, different areas that come out of the skull. And again, the spinal cord that comes through this hole right here called the foramen magnum. So what's really important about that is that if you think about it, your brain essentially controls every single thing in your body, and the only way that it controls anything in your body is by controlling it through the spinal cord, through this area right through here. So imagine for a second that this area here was blocked, or essentially there was pressure or tension there, and it got smaller and smaller. Do you think that would have an impact on your health? Do you think that would have an impact on how you digest food, how your heart beats, how you breathe? Imagine that for a second. And that's because everything is connected to your nervous system. So what we do here, which is a little bit different than traditional chiropractic, most people think about traditional chiropractic kind of being popping or snapping or popping the back. We also focus on what's called cranial nerves and cranial adjusting. So cranial adjusting is basically adjusting the bones of the skull. See, a lot of the bones in the skull can actually move, and when those bones move out of place or subluxate, which we call chiropractically, that puts pressure on different nerves. And you can see how here, not only the foramen magnum, but different foramen here underneath the skull, if that bone just moves a little bit, starts to close down that space, and what can happen is that can impact any organ or any tissue that's connected to that nerve. For example, the vagus nerve is a really important nerve in the body. It's cranial nerve number 10. That goes to essentially all different organs in our body. Vagus nerve not only controls how we digest food, but also how our heart beats, how our intestines work, even up to our sexual function as well too. It's all controlled by our vagus nerve. So imagine for a second if that space was closed down, say from an impact, a fall, or trauma, or maybe even the birthing process, a compression of that nerve, how that can have an impact on the vagus nerve and how our body can heal. If that vagus nerve is inhibited, what happens is that we get things, for example, where our body can't relax. We're in a fight or flight response or a high stress sympathetic response. And how many of us know, if we look at society today, how many of us are under a lot of stress? People are under a lot more stress. In fact, 30 years ago, they said that one day or 30 days of living in 1980 was essentially the same as living for one day in 2010. So imagine that right now in 2019, looking back 30 years ago, somebody could have lived essentially for 30 days without having that stress or tension.